Hello, everyone. Is it amazing go around and working well? And please engage in the comments. If there are things that are resonating with you, stories that you have to share. It always helps people see struggling with it. And just to see yourself in people's stories. Awesome. And if you're joining live, always say hi. It's always nice to see who's watching. If you are joining in the replay or watching the replay, send me a note as well and just say hi. And we can chat through anything that you might be struggling with as well. So you can post in the comments if you're struggling with, and if you're watching live, I'll try and comment on it at the time. But if it's after the live, I always go back to the comments and just answer any questions that anyone has or reply to any comments. So please feel free to share and interact. Cool. Just making sure I put everything up here. All right. Okay, so a little bit about why I'm talking about time management. So I'm a coach for women, particularly women in healthcare. And part of it is this designing of this career that really lights you up and that you're excited about and that feels fulfilling to you. And then the other aspect is designing that career journey around your health and your well-being. So we design it with that as a top priority instead of those things being, as it is for many of us, they kind of come against each other and they are in opposition with each other. So either we are leading into our career and creating this career that we really love, or we are, focusing on our own health and recovery and we're resting and all that kind of stuff. And these really don't need to be things that are in opposition with each other. We can have both. And actually having both is what creates not only, us not burning out and us actually being healthy and thriving, but it is actually helpful for our career. It actually makes us better at what we do. It makes us more alive at work. It makes us more passionate about what we do, less resentment, less fatigue, all of that. So just that message of these two things can coexist, and they coexist very well. Okay, so I've spoken about time management. Hey, Leanne. So I've spoken about time management before on the Facebook group. So I will link in this video to that as well. So you can go back and look at that. And in that, we specifically talked about time management and how we sometimes think something is a time management issue, when really it's like an emotional management issue, or a problem with setting boundaries, or a problem with prioritizing, or whatever it is. We call a lot of things time management, and we tend to think about it from a very technical perspective, like how can I use this tool or this app or whatever it is, when actually the issue is somewhat deeper. And I use the example for me of I am early for everything. I am very good at managing my time, but for some reason, when it came to seeing patients, I always ran late. I was always over time. I was always taking longer than I planned to. And so just examining, like, where is that an issue with, for example, in my case, setting boundaries or not people pleasing, that kind of thing. Because if in every other area of my life, I'm really good at managing my time, then we can look at what is it about this specific situation that I'm struggling with. And so just seeing, like, where we call it time management, that maybe we can go a bit deeper and see, like, what is actually going on here. And we also talked about different scenarios that clinicians often struggle with. The first one was making time for their own health and recovery. We talked about struggling with, like I was alluding to now, the patient appointments, like running late or running over time, or taking long with every appointment. And then the third one was procrastinating on like a task that you want to do, or something that you want to get done, but you keep procrastinating on it. So we spoke about that in the previous one. And today we're going to get a little bit more specific. So we're going to use a specific tool that I'm going to guide you through. And so you can use the other one as more sort of a background and more the deeper aspects of it. And then you can use this tool as a more kind of practical, this is one of the ways that you can really manage your time. Leanne, I'd like to hear from you what your struggles with time management are, if any. And then maybe we can specifically look at that as well. Okay. So this tool is called Monday Hour One, and it was developed by the Life Coach School. And so I'm kind of going to use a modification of that with the idea of how do we actually prioritize things. Not only just fit everything in that we want to fit in, but how do we actually either take stuff off our lists that we've decided are not even important, or prioritizing the things that we do have on our list. Okay, so the Monday Hour One, the reason it's called Monday Hour One, you can actually do this on any day. I sometimes do it on a Friday for the week ahead, like I did today. But other people like to do it on a Sunday before their week, and other people like to do it on a Monday, first day of the week, whatever it is for you. And the first part of it is taking a piece of paper and just doing like what they call a brain dump. So just writing down every single thing that you feel needs to be done. And that can be this coming week, it can be years into the future. We want to get everything off our mind so that there's not this kind of nagging thing like, oh, I want to be doing this, or I still haven't organized that cupboard that I always tell myself I'm going to organize. So get everything out in there, just write, every single thing that comes to mind. And so I won't leave any time now to do that. I think you can just pause this video when you're watching a replay of it, or just write down the steps if you are joining live. But yeah, essentially just listing every single thing that you feel needs to be done. And this can go one of two ways. Sometimes we look at that list and we just feel completely overwhelmed because it just feels like there's all the stuff that we need to do. And we just are like, how am I going to do all this? But what sometimes also happens, as the case often for me, I kind of feel this relief of, okay, it's not just like somewhere in my brain now. It's actually somewhere on paper, something concrete, something I can look at, that are on my brain to-do list. So just realizing if you do feel overwhelmed by this, we are going to do next steps. And so sort of comforting yourself with that idea, but just realizing that, it can bring the sense of relief. Okay, so that's the first step, the brain dump. The second step to this is you're going to be looking at this whole list that you have. And we want to start editing this list. So this is where I was talking about like getting rid of stuff that actually doesn't need to be on there. And sometimes this is like just letting go of something that has been on your to-do list for ever, right? And you just eventually just decide, you know what, this doesn't have to be on my to-do list. It would have been great if I had done this, but it's not getting done and I'm okay with it and I'm letting it go, right? Sometimes it's just like, okay, it's run its time. It's clearly not that important. Sometimes it's something or things that you have this narrative of, but I have to do this. I have no choice. I have to do this. And those are the things we also want to start looking at. I always say to people, I have to is not the full sentence. So whenever you find yourself saying, I have to, try and complete that sentence by, I have to do X if I want Y. So then we get to look at, is that thing something you actually want to do? So for example, let's say a very obvious example of like something we generally we have to do. I have to complete that patient report. Okay. And when we complete it with, I have to write that patient report in order to, maybe it's, keep, maybe it's, because that's what I committed to the patient and I want to keep my commitment. Maybe it's to please the patient, or maybe it's to, get it off my to-do list and feel that kind of relief, whatever the reason is. But when we do this, what we're doing is looking at it from a sense of autonomy and control. Not just, I have to do all these things because the outside world is telling me, hey Liz, that I have to do these things, right? So we want to complete the sentence of I have to do this thing with if I want, or because I want. And just kind of reframing that. So looking, as if you missed the first part, we first doing like a brain dump of every single thing that we feel we need to do. And then the second step that we're busy with now is we are editing that list. So we're looking at anything that you can take off, run its course. We don't need that on the list anymore. What can you delegate? What do you feel, like we were saying with the have to, what do you feel some sort of obligation to do that you actually don't want to do, or that has been on your list for so long and you keep thinking, but I have to do this, I have to do this. And can you examine that have to? Can you either reframe that to, I actually want to do this because this is what it brings me? Or if you're saying, for example, let's take maybe an example of I have to, schedule a meeting in with this friend that, maybe you've been putting off and you don't maybe particularly want to see them, they're not high on the priority list. And your framing is like, I have to do that. And then if you complete that sentence with the if I want, you'll see I have to do that if I want to keep her happy, or if I want to not feel guilty, or if I want to feel like a terrible person. Then you can go and examine something that's meaningful to you. Is it meaningful to stop people from being displeased with you? Is it meaningful to make time for people that you don't necessarily want to prioritize? So we get to take control of that, or responsibility, let's say, for those decisions. So delegating, removing, examining things, on things, until you really have a list of, this is everything I want to get done. And then the third step we're going to take with this is we're actually going to schedule that in. And when I say schedule it in, I mean entirely schedule it in, so that you can actually take this piece of paper and you can throw it into it. Because often what we do is we schedule one or two things in that we feel can be scheduled in, and then we just keep that running to-do list, and we'll get to it at some point, and it's still kind of this thing that's in the back of our mind all the time. So actually opening your calendar, whether that's digital or an actual physical calendar or diary, and you actually schedule that in. And this has different roles that it plays. Just want to explore. One, you're looking at what you think you can do in a week, and looking at, like, is this actually a week that I feel good about? Is this like how I want to be living my life? Or am I just trying to like squeeze everything in and make sure that I get all these things done, when actually this looks like a week of hell for me? So that can be one of the aspects of it that you're looking at. Do I actually just want to fit all this in, right? And maybe you, again, be even more, you kind of take even more off your list because of that, or you just then extend it a little bit, right? Like, maybe I don't need to do all of that this coming week. Maybe I can schedule it in, but then you're actually scheduling it in to another week. Then there are things that we may feel are difficult to schedule. And here we want to sort of make little blocks in our calendar. For example, let's say you want to write a patient report. You can actually schedule that into your calendar of, this is when I'm going to write the patient report. But you might have different aspects of writing that patient report. Maybe the first one is you just brainstorming a little bit, or you're just doing a bit of research, or you're writing like a first draft, right? We can actually schedule in the different steps of that task if you feel like the task itself is difficult to just schedule in, right? And then it can be things like cleaning, for example, like like the closet that I mentioned, you have always had it on your list, like you're meant to be organizing this cupboard and it just never gets done, whatever it is. That stuff can also end. And I know that it's a little bit like you're scheduling your whole life, but you really want to get a sense of like, when am I actually going to do this? Because we often, like they say, we overestimate what we can do in the term, and we underestimate what we can do in the long term. So often like cram all of this stuff in. And the more we get to see what our calendar is looking like, the more we will actually do this more deliberately going forward. And not have this state where we just feel so bad because we always have this to-do list and nothing ever gets done, and we feel so overwhelmed, and we feel like we can't manage that. So you're looking at, is this actually a realistic expectation of what I can do with my time? And then one of the things that you'll start to notice is, this is a common one for me, I don't actually even look at my calendar. So I've like planned all of this stuff in, and then I don't actually go and look at my calendar for what was I planning to do right now, right? So that's one thing. And that's why we want to have some sort of calendar that goes with you everywhere. And sometimes just have it actually using the calendar, but we want to be using our calendar to look at, what did I decide to do at this time? What did I decide to do at that time? And then what you'll also notice is, when it actually gets to that moment where you're supposed to be doing X, you will naturally have, depending on the task, of course, but you will naturally have quite a lot of resistance, like, I don't want to. And it's a similar thing, that idea of I don't want to. We also want to examine a bit more, right? Because usually what we don't want is actually the discomfort, the emotions that come up with that task. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes we just have this like, our motivation is here and how much we feel we need for this task is like up here. Whatever it is, we might have certain barriers to that. So the process before scheduling it in is actually, or the process up to scheduling it in is probably the easy part, or the kind of like, these are the steps, this is the technical part. But then the fun starts when we actually have to do it and we get to navigate, like, what is the resistance here? Why don't I feel like doing it? And like I was saying with the don't want to, a similar thing to like the I have to, we want to go into that a little bit further. So do I really not want to do this? If I look at like the long-term effects of not doing this, is that really what I want? And sometimes it is. Sometimes you're like, actually, this thing could go with my to-do list. But most of the time, it's genuinely just a resistance to that discomfort, to the emotions that come up, to the like, ugh, of doing that task in the moment. And that's where a lot of the like work and practice and keeping commitments to yourself, building that trust with yourself is going to come in. But also, like I said, it can be when you keep coming up against things on your calendar that you don't want to. Maybe there's another reason for that. Like, why is your calendar filled with things that you never want to do, right? But sometimes it's just navigating some discomfort. Sometimes it's realizing like, this is me practicing having a relationship with myself where I actually keep the commitments that I have to myself in the way that I would if I was meeting another person. You wouldn't just blow it off if it was something you're meeting someone else for, right? So this is where we get to do like the deeper work, or the juicier work. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about, when you are using this method, we tend to work our time around whatever we have sort of decided is the most important thing. So for example, if you have working hours, and those possible like around your working hours, right? And in the same way, we can prioritize our health and recovery in a very literal, practical sense, right? We can schedule that into our calendar as this is the time that I am, exercising. This is the time I'm spending time with, people in my life, that I'm maybe reaching out to people that I don't see often, some sort of, relationship maintenance, or sometimes you are setting aside time for journaling, for more like the existential meaning, purpose driven questions, right? Sometimes you're scheduling in, making meals for 1 or 2 days or whatever it is. Like we can actually, like we would plan in our work, we can plan in our health and recovery. So we can decide what time do I want to spend on health and recovery, and actually planning that in, and then your other to-dos go around that, right? And this is where I was sort of speaking about like the career and the health. They can both be scheduled in the way that we would if we were prioritizing both. And so your work is not coming against your health and recovery or vice versa. But both of these, you're intentionally saying, this is the time that I want to spend on this. This is the time that I want to spend on that. And any other things can sort of be worked in around that. Instead of doing all the other things, and then if we have time, we might go for a run. Or if we have time, we might, go to bed at the time that we said we were going to, whatever it is. We can prioritize that by literally scheduling it into our calendar. And then again, working with what resistance comes up when you actually get to that time that you going naturally, so you get to go in a little bit deeper, and you get to actually build up a really incredible relationship with yourself doing that. Awesome. I'd love to hear if you guys have any questions or anything that you particularly find that you struggle with, or any of these steps that just sound a little bit like, oh, I'm going to struggle with that. Awesome. This tool. And then if you want any support on this, additional support, especially when we get to the part of like, I did the list, I scheduled it in, but when I actually try do the stuff with healthcare providers, you really love this journey of your career being something that really lights you up. Paused. Sorry, my internet is okay. So creating the career that really lights you up really prioritizes your own health and recovery, because I know as healthcare providers, we really value health, and we really value that rest and not burning out and all of those things, but we struggle to actually implement it, to actually do it in our lives. As much as we want to prioritize it and we find it important, we often struggle to actually put that into action. So that's what I do. I work one-on-one with healthcare providers, and we work for 3 months at a time, and we create that career that lights you up rather than burns you out. So let me know if you have any questions, any feedback, anything that you'd like to go a little bit deeper on with this, or anything that you are sort of struggling with when you come up against this time management thing. And really, time management is like a huge topic. And like I said, there's often so many other things that are going on when we think of our ability to manage our time and prioritize our time. There are usually so many other things contributing to that than just like the logical distribution of our time, because most of us know how to do it, right? Most of us have a sense of like, this is what I need to do. But sometimes a really practical tool like this one can really help. I found it incredibly useful for myself. And then also the kind of deeper support, the coaching, mentorship from someone, or just journaling, writing about it as things come up as you follow this or use this tool. Awesome. Have a good, what is it today? Friday. Have a good Friday. Cheers, guys.